Everybody's back. All right, we'll give them just another couple of seconds. So just as you guys are coming back, I was afraid that was going to happen. They do like a clean sweep of the system once a day. They normally do it after the school day, just like a refresh of everybody's names. But I have to put Miss Hoy's name every day before we start class, so it doesn't recognize her name, so it kicks her out. But they normally do it at night, not in the middle of the day. So that's why what happened there just happened, and we should be good from now on. So, Miss Hoy, if you want to kind of just start back up, I know this is,
right,
but whatever.
It cut off right as Matthew was about to share what he wrote. Would you like to share now, please, if you mind?
So I just said, like, my family celebrates, like, the holidays that are kind of home to, like, Jesus, like Christmas and Easter, because we're Christians, so, like, we celebrate Christmas and Easter every year as the creation and rebirth of Jesus.
Okay, yeah. And those holidays obviously didn't start here, so thank you. A few things that we do here for Christmas. I know a lot of you guys, I'm sure, have a Christmas tree. That started in Germany. But anyway, and one more person want to share what they did before we have to get into the content? How about Gabriella? Real quick, anything. Doesn't have to be a holiday. Could be even something food. Do you want to share what you said?
I do I guess holidays that almost everyone celebrates. We're Catholic, so we do Christmas and Easter.
Okay. So lots of holidays. Well, the reason for this is because we're going to be going into America's government, democracy, and that obviously didn't start here either. That we were inspired by England a lot, as far as just like how a lot of our holidays and traditions that we celebrate are inspired from other places in the world. So if you guys in Schoology, there is a PowerPoint that will be posted. I'm going to present it to you now. Screen share. Okay. Yeah, is it up?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So the roots of American democracy, the objective to describe the influences on American democracy and our systems of government. Okay. So it started back in England, way back in the day. Their political heritage, you see representative government, a government in which the people elect delegates to make laws and policies. If you guys remember, that was one of the principles of our government, was a representative democracy. We have, for a nation of over, I believe we're around 325 million people, and that's way too many people to do a direct democracy. So we took some inspiration from England and we practice a representative democracy. Okay, so English Parliament, that's similar to our, what we would call the United States Congress. They also have a bicameral system of government. Bicameral, that should sound familiar to you guys. Does anyone know what the word bi means? Possibly what number it stands for?
2.
2, yes. So obviously two-house system of government. In England, they had the House of Commons and the House of Lords. So like the House of Commons was almost like a bit of like the regular guys, the landowners, the merchants, and then the House of Lords were the nobles, the aristocracy, similar to our House of Representatives and Senate. And then more into that, we have, oh wait, I'm not in present mode, am I? Okay, sorry. they have a limited government. The power of the monarch or the government is limited by the people. That's our third principle. And our second principle of government for the United States. Okay. It started with here, the Magna Carta, back in 1215. King John of England, some background information, every time a king needed money, they would just tax the nobles a lot. They would just raise taxes whenever they needed more money. The nobles didn't have too much say. During this time, there was a lot of civil unrest in England. So the nobles came up with the Magna Carta. So you can see it helped limit the power of the monarch. It gave the nobles protection such as no taxation without representation, habeas corpus, which prohibited the delay of justice for individuals, and you could not take away life, liberty, and property without just cause. So after the Magna Carta was signed, the king could still tax nobles, but it was now more on their terms. He didn't have complete and total control. And now this brings us into our third principle of government, which is individual rights, the belief that government should protect individual and property rights. So we're going to fast forward to the Petition of Rights. Again, the monarch's powers are limited again. The monarch needs consent from Parliament to collect taxes. It needs a just cause to imprison people. These next two should seem familiar. No quartering, which means you can't house troops in private homes. That's our Third Amendment. And you also cannot declare martial law unless the country was at war. Martial law means the military is in charge, and that means they are not in charge unless we're at war. And then going into the English Bill of Rights, this was, I believe, the last king was beheaded. And then they did offer the throne to William and Mary some few decades later, but they had to agree to these set of rules in order to be monarch. And that means monarchs do not have divine right. They were not placed there by God. They were placed there by the people. The monarch cannot interfere with parliament elections. People can petition the government. That's part of our First Amendment, one of our 5 freedoms. There is no cruel or unusual punishment. That is our 8th Amendment. That's why the only some states have the death penalty still, and if they do, it's only by lethal injection. We have no more public hanging or firing squad or electric chair. No cruel or unusual punishment. Oh yeah, but you said that. I mean, a fair and also a right to a fair and speedy trial, which is our 6th Amendment. You can't be kept in prison forever. And then, so now we're going into Jamestown. It was the first successful British colony. It was mostly people looking for adventure, trying to get maybe bored of their life in England. And yesterday I had you guys write down as many of the 13 colonies as you can remember. These were the 13 colonies. They borrowed the ideas of limited government from Britain to help govern the colonies all along the east coast of what is now the United States. Okay, and here are some of the early governments in the colonies. So here, well, before we go into that, there was the Mayflower Compact. It was only the men aboard. There were men, women, and children on the Mayflower, but the men, obviously the adult men, made the decision that the Mayflower agreed to form a society governed by majority rule on the consent of the people. So that should ring a bell with the social contract that we supposedly live by here in the U.S. And also the Fundamental Orders of Connecticut set laws that limited the power of government and gave all free men the right to choose people to serve as judges. And here are the types of them. This is, I believe, we're at the end. So proprietary colony based on grant of land from the king to a proprietor who financed the start of the colony. So this was how Pennsylvania started. PA was granted to William Penn. It's mostly so because the king didn't feel like being in charge of the colony, so it was on the colonists to get this to start up their own community and finance. Well, no, he financed them, but he just didn't want to be in charge of actually setting it up. Then there were royal colonies, which were directly controlled by the king through an appointed governor. So that appointed governor was basically an extension of the king. And then charter colonies, they operated under charters agreed by the colony and the king. They were the colonies that enjoyed the most independence from the crown. Most of the colonies started out as proprietary colonies and then either shifted to royal colonies or charter colonies throughout their time. Could anyone want to take a guess on which colony maybe had the least amount of power or least amount of freedoms, where the colonists enjoyed the least amount of freedoms? Well, it was. What you got to say, Eden?
New Jersey.
This weekend because
No, not yeah. Jersey was one of the colonies, but as of the three types of colonies, either proprietary, royal, or charter, the types of them, which do you think possibly had the least amount of freedoms, where the colonists enjoyed the least amount of freedoms?
Proprietary.
massive.
Almost. Not exactly. It was the royal colonies where they enjoyed the least amount of freedom because they were right under the king's thumb. Proprietary, charter, they had the most freedom. So proprietary was the second to last one with the least amount of freedoms, but it was royal where they had the least amount of freedoms and say in government. And then, so now that we're done with that, I believe the PowerPoint will be put on Schoology. Before we get into your async work, I want you guys to go back to the do now that we just did with traditions. You'll see there's an exit ticket right underneath the first question. See right here, provide two examples of how American democracy was influenced by England's democracy. And then maybe we'll have like two people share what they wrote, and then I'll get into what you guys have to do for async work today.
What was that exit ticket again? Could you?
It's in Schoology. It says, provide two examples of how American democracy was influenced by England's democracy. Just
Okay.
right underneath what you wrote for today, for what traditions your family celebrates.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Okay, so just real quick, before you guys go into your async work, did anyone want to share what they wrote for the two examples of how American democracy was influenced by England's democracy? I was giving a lot of examples throughout the PowerPoint. Anyone? For example, their right to petition influenced our First Amendment rights and our first 5 freedoms that we have. How about didn't share. Joshua Ivanic, do you want to share 1 or 2 examples you found in which American democracy was influenced by England's democracy? Are you there?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Hi. Were you able to think of any examples of how American democracy was influenced by England's democracy?
The amendments were found in other people's parliaments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct. A lot of our amendments. Could you think of a specific example, like which? So like how their, as I said, petition to right influenced our First Amendment.
No cruel punishment.
Yeah, cruel and unusual punishment. That's our 8th Amendment. Obviously, what we think of as cruel and unusual punishment has evolved over time, but we did get the idea from England. Just one more person could willingly share. I can't remember. What was that?
Housing the soldiers, like we can't be forced.
Exactly. Yeah, no quartering soldiers. That's part of our 3rd Amendment. It is our 3rd Amendment. Okay. Thank you, guys. Anyway, that leads us into today's asynchronous work. It's a guided reading for Chapter 2, Section 1. It's not going to be part of the first half of the grades for you guys. So I believe you have, is it until Monday or Tuesday? When did you want it by?
We'll ask for it by Tuesday.
Tuesday, okay. Where is it? Let me pull it up if I can find it. It's not published yet.
No, I'm sure it should be published.
Okay.
I mean, I'll double check, but
Okay, no, now it is. I had to refresh my page.
no problem. No problem.
Oh wait, that's the wrong. Sorry, I've been having trouble finding the tab.
You want me to bring it up?
There it is. Is it up now?
Yeah, it's there now.
Okay, there. That's your guys' guided reading for to work on for async work. If you want to get some of it done before the end of class, you can do that. Or if you want to work on any late works, again, today is the last day we can accept any late work for the first half of the marking period. Anyway, other than that,
I'm going to chime in real quick. I'm sorry, Miss. So I'm going to chime in real quick because I do got to address So the CDTs, you can keep the screen up there, actually, please. The CDTs that you guys took a couple weeks ago, the results came in. And again, the purpose behind those CDTs is to determine, areas of strength and areas of weakness. And what they're looking for us to do is to identify areas where kids are having struggles. And when we went through and looked at the data and across the board, not just your class, but the other classes as well, there are some issues when it comes to recognizing the main idea when you see when you're reading a passage, and also making inferences. So one thing you're going to see us do a couple times a week is to try to address these areas where people are having issues. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you directly. Some of you, might have really dominated that part. But we're trying to address things from a whole perspective here. So what you see on this particular guided reading is an area called literacy practice. And when you see that, that is geared towards the weaknesses that we're seeing in the results of the CDT. So you can see, for letter A, read why it matters on page 32 of your textbook and explain what the main idea of the reading section is going to be, cite evidence to support. So that kind of mimics, I guess, some of the questions that you would see on the CDT that people had issues with. Letter B, what inferences can you make about the section? When you see the word inferences, I guess you might be like, well, what does that even mean? Inferences, you're just basically trying to come to a conclusion, but you're using like reason and logic to come to that conclusion. It's almost like a prediction. But what inferences can you make about the section you're about to read? And you can see we put there, in other words, why it matters. What do you think, the rest of the section is going to be about? Okay. So we're just going to do it a couple times a week. Most likely it'll be done. We may do a little during synchronous time, but, give you a little bit of practice when it comes to that. And then the goal would be, obviously, I think we have to take it maybe 2 more times. What they would hope to see is that, the kids that struggled in that area, at least, they saw some improvement because of regular practice in class when it came to literacy skills. So that's why you're doing that. But again, in addition to the vocab terms, literacy practice, this is a rather lengthy guided reading we're asking you to do. It's going to count for 20 points. So we're counting it double, but we're also giving you double the amount of time to complete it. So I just wanted to throw that in there real quick. So. Those of you that have to make up old assignments, if you are one of those people who has fallen behind a little bit and has desires a better grade for mid-marks, in order of importance, I would certainly look at the assessments in the grade book. Those are the ones that have, they're highly weighted compared to the classwork that we're going to do. So there is an opportunity that if you, bombed the quiz and wanted to take it again, simply send me an email. I can unsubmit it and give you another chance to get back in there and, earn a few more points. But again, you're going to have to send me an email so we can, get on that and I can activate it so it's possible for you to do that.
Okay. So we're almost right at the end of class. Does anyone have any questions before you're off to fourth block and then it's the weekend? No. All right. Well, then if no one has any questions, just work. Remember, you have the async work that's due on Tuesday. And other than that, have a good weekend, everyone.
See you guys Monday.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi, have a nice
Thank
day.
you.
You too. Take care, everybody.
Goodbye.